Contrary to what Fat Joe says, last year was a great year for hip-hop. Over the past 2 decades, the South, Atlanta, has had a firm grip on hip-hop sound. Until 2024, it seems. It may be kind of early to tell, but the West may be in the driver's seat for hip-hop for the foreseeable future. Is this going to be a story about how Kendrick Lamar beat the brakes off of Drake? Not quite, but we will speak on that a little bit. But this is more of a spotlight piece on all the artists that contributed to why I feel like the West Coast put the industry in a hurt lot that will make Bobby Lashley proud. It also serves as my 2024 wrap-up. For those of you short on time, I will be providing highlight tracks for each of these albums to check out. Let's get to it. Drop the intro. A light history lesson for the youngins. Some of you may be too young to remember a time when the South sound did not dominate the music scene.
The South got something to say, that's all I got to say.
Back in the early 90s, the South was calling for their respect, while the East and the West were going back and forth over the crown. Peak West Coast hip-hop for those of us that weren't on the West Coast was about 1996, which was one of the greatest release years in hip-hop history. Death Row, who at the time was ran by Suge Knight, had Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Tupac, the Dogg Pound, and Nate Dogg, all dominating the scene at the time. Tupac in particular was killing the scene with All Eyes on Me. Don't get me wrong, Death Row was not the only label, but from an East Coast perspective, they were the big dogs on the yard. Tupac was murdered, and the next biggest artist at the time was Snoop Dogg, who dropped the ball with his album Dogfather, which was the follow-up to Doggy Style. From that point on, the coast as a whole never really felt the same again, and it didn't feel like they were on top. Fast forward 28 years later, January 2024. I came across an album by an artist named Price. The album was called C.I.T.Y. With the New Year's always starting off a little bit slow, I threw on the album to see if anything would catch my attention. 37 minutes later, I was running it back and looking up this Price guy. Turns out he was part of Audio Push. Ain't that the group that made that song Teach Me How to Jerk? Well, dude was nice. I started doing a deep dive. He's been nice this whole time, and the Teach Me How to Jerk record was not a good representation of how nice he was. On this album, I'm loving the bars, the beat selection, the positivity, and the fact that it's a concept-driven album. C.I.T.Y, meaning Caught in the Youth, is one of the sleeper albums of the year for sure. There's also a deluxe version of this album with gospel vocals on it, as well as a joint project with Coda the Friend called Sanction Volume 1, which got some bangers on it as well. By the beginning of March, Schoolboy Q dropped off his 6th full album, Blue Lips. I wasn't ready yet. Like, deadass, I wasn't ready. I put it to the side and kind of ignored it. Rob Markman said some words in a video mid-year that made me revisit it, and man was I missing out. This album is really nuts. It's kind of like the album version of if O-Dog from Menace did a collab with Dr. Lee from Drumline. It's some of the most sophisticated, ratchet music I can remember in recent history. Q shows his ability to grow and step into spaces that usually get praised for your effort or dismantled for your effort, and he stuck the landing. There are times on this project where the raps ride shotgun, and they still hold their ground. The features are spot on for this effort, and this is easily one of the album of the year contenders. Then it was just a normal day on March 22nd. I saw that Future and Metro Boomin had an album, but I didn't have an urge to check it out, not being a big Future fan and all. I put on Sir's album instead, TDE's male vocal hitman. Sir came back looking like he was in the gym with the early 2000s Nelly and 50 Cent. Heavy, the appropriately titled 4th album, follows his journey from addiction and depression to sobriety. The result is Sir's most personal and debatably his best album to date. The content matter and the vocal risk all pay off over a 16-track and 50-minute experience. While I listened to Sir's Heavy for the first time, I started seeing people on social media mention that Kendrick had a verse on one of the Metro Boomin and Future songs. I dropped my daughter off at school and I put the record on. While I listened to it, I had no idea that this was going to kick off the most dominating topic of hip-hop in 2024. I thought the Like Us verse was really dope, but K-Dot and the boy have been throwing subs at each other for years now, right? I mean, nothing was gonna come from it. I didn't think it would. A week later, Compton MC Buddy released his 3rd album, Don't Forget to Breathe. Buddy's music is very easily accessible, and Don't Forget to Breathe ain't much different. Going the independent route has given Buddy a lot of freedom, and it comes across in the music. Buddy's laid-back demeanor, fan accessibility, with relatable topics make this album a great playthrough on any car ride. After a few quiet weeks on the Kendrick and Drake front, Drake came off tour feeling himself quite heavily. After a few shots on stage, Drake decided to formally call out K-Dot. Probably high off a sellout tour and feeling in his creative pocket, he dropped off back-to-back records with Push Up and Tailor Made Freestyle. Drake seemed to be setting the stage to pull an 8 Mile to insulate himself from some attacks while making light jokes and punches. Some hindsight shows that this approach was a bad idea. Drizzy also did a song using an AI verse of Tupac and Snoop Dogg, encouraging Dot to talk about him liking young girls, and brought his wife into the situation, all while trolling that Dot couldn't respond for multiple reasons.
Come on, man.
Suggesting that this should just be a friendly fade and not get personal, Dot kept it fairly clean, firing off bars about,
I don't like anything about Drake. Mom, I don't like his voice. I don't like what he talks about. I don't.
See, I be trying to tell these face.
I don't like the way he walks. Like nothing. I don't like his haircut.
Then less than 24 hours later, we got a heavy lyrical onslaught on 616 in LA. Drake followed this up with more social media trolling and threats of pushing the red button. Once again, hindsight proves that this was a bad call. Anybody remember when Ronda Rousey was prepping to fight Amanda Nunes in public? Yeah, the results were pretty catastrophic. But ego is a hell of a drug, and Drake's red button was accompanied by a music video for Family Matters. The record threw out some pretty heavy allegations about Dot's wife, his best friend, and his kids. The problem with the record is that it focused too much on a side cast that had gotten involved in the battle. And one of his biggest lines ended up being one of the main reasons that he lost, in my opinion. Always rapping like you about to get the slaves freed. If Drake actually paid attention to the opening of Euphoria, he would have actually seen that the FUBU line, as well as the "we don't want to hear you say nigga no mo," was actually just a setup to put culture at the forefront of this battle.
Got him. We fucking got him.
Nonetheless, Family Matters actually wasn't that bad at all. I was actually about to run the song back when I got a text message saying,
"Did you hear that?
Drake dropped.
You heard it?
I expected it. I'm uploading now."
Kendrick Lamar responded. I cannot emphasize this point enough. This is going to be one of the key points that gets lost as time moves forward. Dot gave Drake 30 minutes to enjoy the hype that he had built all week about this red button, only to step on it 30 minutes later. Completely aware that Drake would cross the line and bring family into it, Dot dropped Meet the Grams. This haunting record Alchemist produced was a scathing indictment on Drake, how he was raised, and how he was raising his kids. Even though one of the key points of the song was allegations of a kid no one knew about, ignoring that verse, the song had accomplished its goal. With letters to everyone in Drake's family leaving the listener feeling left uneasy, this record made it tough to sleep. I kept remembering thinking, what could Drake be thinking right now? This is really heavy. And at that point, I remember thinking, all right, damn, Dot, you won. He's sorry. Just stop. I finally made it to sleep, and then I remember waking up seeing Dot had another song. Like, you just had to be there. The song was called Not Like Us. And the second the beat dropped, I remember thinking,
You lose. Good day, sir.
This shit is over. It truly is over. The best way to describe this is to refer anybody to the video compilations of people reacting to the song. This song was going crazy. The way people were reacting in the reaction videos was spot on to how people was reacting in their homes. Everybody was texting. Everybody was calling. Drake fans was having a rough 24 hours. This was the most heavily rotated song I could even remember. I'm talking about since, like, it's all about the Benjamins. I'm talking about Touch It, Work from Missy, Rough Riders Anthem. Like, there were these huge monumental records. Not Like Us was everywhere. That put the nail in any remnants of culture relevance left for Drake to proclaim over and over again, yelling, "They not like us." One more interesting thing about Dot's approach in this whole battle was how he never actually responds to any of Drake's allegations on record. He only actually responds in real life. Ignoring the accusations proved to be more effective than responding to each of them on songs if most of the battles had done up to this point. Drake did respond to this all with the Heart Part 6, but it's like Ray Gun at the Olympics in 2024. We're better off acting like it never happened. As we ventured into June, Kendrick Lamar announced the Pop Out with Ken and Friends concert on Juneteenth. On Juneteenth. Culture. This was another culture move that was genius for a multitude of reasons. But a few days before that, we got the return of NxWorries. Anderson .Paak and Knowledge, for those of you that don't know. Knowledge provided Paak with the perfect instrumental backdrop to vent about his potential move on from his pending divorce, which was the fuel to the fire here. They say pressure either busts pipes or it breaks diamonds. We'll consider this album a diamond in the rough, waiting for more people to discover it. I don't want to spend too much time on the pop-up show, but I did want to say, man, that some of them Drake lines age very horribly. Another action that speaks louder than words is a response to the allegation that Dot didn't have much love in LA. He brought out the whole California underground scene, established acts, Black Hippie, Dr. Dre, all out on Amazon. LeBron was there, Westbrook was there. This was a moment for sure. The cuts and the performance for Not Like Us alone deserve an Oscar or Emmy or whatever that award is you get for that. Blxst has been making noise since 2018 with his smooth vocals and MC-like approach to songwriting. His debut album, I'll Always Come Find You, was worth the wait and does not disappoint. Blxst created a character named Birdie who was poised to take over his dad's chauffeuring business while dealing with his life challenges. Each song, referring to a different chapter in Birdie's life, allows Blxst to keep his privacy. This is one of the easiest listens from 2024. I was actually in LA when this came out, and this was a vibe riding around listening to it while I was there. DJ Mustard was looked at as the go-to producer after Not Like Us showed a return to form, but Drake fans saw him as public enemy number 2. He announced his album Faith of a Mustard Seed, which finally released in July. Similar to most compilation-style albums, Mustard enlisted the help of some of his friends in the industry, with him being behind the board the whole way and on the mic once. He also used some narrative elements throughout to tie this album together, which was a nice touch. I recall Ack and Drake fans mentioning his first week sales, but they're not reflective of the quality of the album here. There are some great songs here, including some great collabs, with several exceeding expectations. Flip through these 5 records, and I'm sure you'll end up with some on repeat on your playlist. Beautiful Pain is the 7th album from singer-actor Tyrese, and boy is it beautiful. In the wake of his most recent divorce, Tyrese spills all of his feelings across an hour and 26-minute long project. While this album plays out, you can feel the pain in every single word he utters. The album features some great mixes of remakes and new records that all fit the theme and tone of the project. I can truly say this is the most criminally underrated album to drop this year, being my favorite R&B album of 2024. October, we got the release of Dom Kennedy's Class of 95. I'm not all that familiar with Dom's catalog, normally hearing him on features, but this was the one that got me. Great flows, verses, all throughout with some great instrumentals. You can just hit play and vibe out. There are some great features here as well, clocking in at about 1 hour and 2 minutes. This might be a little long for the average listener these days, but I can assure you that it's better than most of these 2-minute TikTok offerings out here. Randy Orton style, Tyler the Creator dropped out of nowhere, breaking the Friday mode, dropping on a Good Old Days release date, Tuesday. It paid off massively too, giving people time to consume the music while working and making their commutes to work for the week. The album, titled Chromakopia, chroma meaning color and copia meaning abundance, is narrated by his mother giving him advice before each song, then us hearing how he chooses to deal with these situations his mom warned him about. Tyler continues to venture into more different styles of music, showing more growth with each release, putting him in similar territory to Andre 3K hit with The Love Below sonically. When we talk lyrical miracle rap, you gotta mention Ab-Soul. Dedicated to his friend Doughburger, who passed away in 2021, Soul mentioned on the Joe Budden podcast that this time it was about the money. That may be true, but Ab-Soul did not compromise his sound in search of the almighty dollar. He does take some risks on records that could be deemed more commercial than his previous efforts, but overall, I don't know how he could dumb it down for slower audiences even if he tried. The entendres sound too easy for him. Music like this is why I love the culture. Ain't nothing like catching something new every single time you throw in the same song because something went over your head. Soul is sharp as ever this time around, rounding out a great year that TDE had as a label in general. Dot Stealth dropped a new music video and an album catching everybody by surprise in November. This was the one everybody was waiting for. Social media had people thinking that if this album wasn't fire, somehow Drake would retroactively win the battle. Well, it was a tough day for those guys, because man, when you press play, this album is 44 minutes of fire that goes hard in any situation. The majority of the features here are from LA acts on the come up, giving all of them their first charted records. Also, the album pushes further into the Westcoast sound, with anybody thinking one of the biggest records of the decade Not Like Us, and the pop out was a fluke. It was also announced that he would be hitting the road with SZA in 2025, and also provided plenty of bangers to ring off at the Super Bowl. Finally, in December, we got one of the most slept on releases of the year, the follow-up to Doggy Style 3 decades later, Missionary. The second ever album completely produced by Dr. Dre that's not a Dr. Dre album. The first one was Calabasas by Marsha Ambrosius, which is an amazing album that y'all should go check out as well. Missionary does, in my opinion, what Jay-Z was trying to do with Kingdom Come and the Magnum Carter Holy Grail. Tom Petty and Sting collabs feel right at home here, with Snoop Dogg rapping like he found a fountain of youth. Shout out to Khan and Coco Sarai and all the others who played a huge role in this one. Drake got the best out of Snoop with every take, making the 30-year wait worth it. Yeah, there are plenty of good West Coast albums that I didn't talk about on this list that are worth checking out. Ice Cube, Kamaya, Kehlani, Jason Martin, The Alchemist, Mozzie, a bunch of others. There's also great albums from artists that aren't from the West Coast like Lupe Fiasco, Marsha Ambrosius, Meg Thee Stallion, Cordae, Rhapsody, LL Cool J, Dolce, and so many more. But the main takeaway I walk away with in 2024 is the West Coast's consistency of music throughout the year has put them in the driver's seat going forward in 2025. Will they be able to keep the crown consistently the whole year? I don't know. But with 4 more years of Agent Orange as the president and dumb shit happening all over the globe, I'm very curious to see what music is going to be like in 2025.